Alrighty guys, so by now you should know how to do a 3-point perspective box as well as multiple versions of 2-point perspective boxes. Today we're going to be adding on to that knowledge, and we're actually going to be taking a 2-point perspective box and we're going to be adding some details to that box. So to start off, you're going to need a large piece of paper, you're going to need your pencil, and you're going to need your ruler. The pencil is really important because you're probably going to be doing some erasing today, so make sure you have one. Now, I'm going to be moving a little fast during this video. If at any point you need to pause, then go ahead and do so to make sure that you keep up, because there are a lot of steps that are going to be involved here. Now, the first thing we're going to do, just like we always do, we're going to create our horizon line, try and get it as close to the center of our page as possible, and then go straight across as straight as we possibly can. And then we're going to create our 2 points. So it's got point 1 and point 2. All right, and then just for the sake of making sure that we don't get confused while working on our boxes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to name these points just like we've named all of our points previously. We are going to name this first point over here, let's go with Lydia. Why not? And the second point we're going to name is Carl. So we have Lydia and we have Carl. Make sure you guys can see that. There we go. All right, now we're going to take our ruler and we're going to start creating our 2-point box. We're going to go a little bit further to the right. We don't want to go all the way over to Lydia. I said the right and I meant the left. We don't want to get too close to Lydia, but we want to kind of come a little bit more on this side, not halfway. And then we're going to have our ruler as straight as possible and coming from above the horizon line to below the horizon line, we're going to draw a line. So just like that. It's not going to touch the top of the paper, it's not going to touch the bottom, it's just going to intersect the horizon line. And then just like our standard 2-point box, we're going to connect our lines together. So we're going to take the bottom of this line and we're going to connect it all the way up to Lydia. And then the top of this line, we're going to connect it all the way down to Lydia. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side with Carl. So we're going to take the bottom of this line and connect him all the way over to Carl. And the top of this line and connect it all the way down to Carl. All right, and then we have to create the sides of our boxes. So for the side that is closest to Carl, we're going to go a little bit closer to him than we probably normally would. Instead of just a standard box, we're going to go with more of a rectangular shape. So we're going to go right there for the first one. And then over on this side with Lydia, we don't want a small side right here. We want it a little bit on the larger. So we're going to go about this distance away from Lydia, I would say. That's probably a good ruler's length. And we're going to create a line from the top angled line to the bottom one. And at this point, if you would like to help create more of a distinctive look of a building, we can go ahead and actually erase these outer corners. And you're going to have the start of your 2-point box that's going to turn into a house. So moving on from here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put some windows on our house. To do that, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to line it up with Lydia. Now at this point, it's really important that we still use our ruler and we make sure that we always connect back to our points. If at any point we don't connect our ruler back to our points, our perspective is going to be off and it is going to be noticeable. So always make sure that your lines connect back to these points. Now the first one we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler, connect it to Lydia, and we're going to go from the top of our building here, above the horizon line, and then not all the way to this line right here. We're going to come just a little bit over, and we're going to create a short line right there. So we're just going to be creating a small window to the side. We're going to take our ruler and put it back again on Lydia. Now we're going to go below the horizon line and then going just a little bit off to this line here, we're going to go straight out like that. All right, and that's going to create 2 lines that we now have to connect. And to connect them, just like we always do with our lines up and down, we're going to get this as straight as we possibly can. Now, a little trick to get our ruler straight that I use is I use the numbers on the rulers to help create this straight effect. So I'm looking right now at this number 1, and I can see it's almost completely lined up with the paper at the top. And then I'm looking down here at the bottom, and just past the 10 is also lined up. And that's how I know that my ruler is straight. So when I draw this line, that is as straight as I can possibly get, and it is parallel with this first line that I made. And then all we had to do is just connect this top line we just made with this bottom line. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So we're going to line it up as straight as we possibly can and go straight up. And at this point, if your lines went a little over, you can go ahead and erase those out just so that we have nice, even, clean edges. So now we have the shape of a window, but we want our window to kind of recede a little bit into the building. So in order to do that, we are now going to come and take our ruler all the way over to our friend Carl. Carl doesn't want to be left alone over here. He wants to join the party. So we're going to line our ruler up with Carl. Again, if you need to help line it up, you can use your pencil and just tap the ruler with your pencil. Tap the pencil with your ruler. That'll make sure you're always connected to that point. And then we're going to come to this box we just made, this shape, and we're going to go to the corner furthest away from Carl. So all the way out here on the left-hand side at the top. And then we're just going to create a very short line that goes into that shape that we just made. So you can see just like that. And then exact same thing is going to be done on the bottom. We're going to connect back to Carl. We're going to line it up with this bottom corner closest to Lydia over here of the shape we just made. And then we're just going to create a short little line that goes into the shape again. All right, and now we're going to take our ruler, going back into the straight position, and those two lines that we just made, we are going to connect. And connecting them, again, you might see that you went a little too far for one of the lines. That is okay. You just take your eraser and remove some of that line so you don't get confused. And be off that. Now to finish out this window and make sure that it looks like it's in perspective, we're going to go back to Lydia over here, connect up our ruler with our point, and we're going to find this bottom corner that we just made with this new shape inside of our window. We're going to line it up, and we're going to go over until we hit this line right here. All right? And then we're going to do the exact same thing up here and go from that top corner and connect it up there. And now you have one window that looks like it's kind of recessed into the building just a little bit. Now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make real quick one more window. While I'm doing this, I want you to go ahead and practice what we just learned and make a second window right here to the side of this first window. So remembering to always connect back to Lydia to get that top and bottom point, keeping our ruler nice and straight to make sure that our lines are parallel with each other throughout the entire piece, and erasing any additional lines if we happen to not go far enough. Using our friend Carl all the way off to the side here to make sure that we keep it in perspective by creating some short little lines that go into that shape we just made right there and right there. And then again, creating a straight line that is parallel with all the other lines. And then finally connecting it back to Lydia over here to finish off our windows so it looks like they're recessed back into our building. Now you should have two windows. They might be a little different shaped, but it's okay. As long as they're close to what we need them to be, that is perfect. Now we're going to move on and we're actually going to be adding a porch or a step to our building. So that is going to be taking place right here on the building, to this small little section. So we're going to take our ruler, we're going to line it up with Carl here, and we're actually going to be going below the line of the house that we have here. This is going to be how we create this push out effect. So we're going to take our ruler, go a little bit, not quite close to the building, but a little bit closer, about halfway down the building. We're going to go ahead and create a line that does not extend all the way to the end, but just kind of sits there in that little area. And then taking our ruler and going above this house line. So we put below, we now want to go above into the house, going back to Carl and creating another line in approximately that same area until we have 2 lines sitting right there. And then just like the windows before, we are going to take our ruler, going as straight as possible, and we're going to connect those 2 lines together. Going up on one side and then up on the other. And then if you have the overhang again, you can just erase this. All right, and then to finish it off, we're actually going to go inside this box and we're going to erase the shape of the house there. And we're going to be left with this kind of weird floating shape just sitting out there. Now, to make this shape look less weird and floaty, what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler, we're going to line it back up with our friend Lydia over here, and we're going to find this bottom corner. All right, the bottom corner furthest away from Carl, it's the closest one to Lydia. We're going to line it up and we're going to connect that to our house, just like that. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the top, closest to Lydia. And we're just going to go in a short distance. Doesn't have to be too far. And then the final thing that, or not the final thing, but the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing over here on the other corner. And so you can kind of see the shape starting to form. It's starting to look a little bit more extended from our building. A little addition that we can do is we can go back to our straight line of the ruler, going from this bottom point where it connects to the house up to the top part of our porch. We can go ahead and draw a line there and then erase this little piece right here if we want to. If you'd like to keep it, you can too. That just makes it look like you have a hollow step. And then we're going to go back over here to Carl, and we now have to connect this part of our step all the way up to this part. So connecting Carl, we're going to come to this far corner here and connect it over. At this point, you can see whether or not your line went too far. If it's too far, you actually don't have to erase it right now because I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. That can stay. We're going to come back into our ruler being straight position, and we're going to come over to this same corner that we've been at for a minute, and we're going to take our ruler as straight as we possibly can, and we're going to come up not all the way to the top, but kind of close to the top. And this is going to be the start of our doorway. And then again, keeping our ruler in a straight position, we're going to bring it all the way over to this top corner right here. And we're going to get close to the top, but not all the way to the top of our building there. All right, so you should have 2 lines going straight up and down. Now we need to create the top of those lines. So again, we're going to use our friend Carl. He's going to help create those lines. We're going to line them up with whichever line is the shortest. So this line right here for me is the shortest. And I'm going to go straight across. And that's going to create that shape right there. And then I'm going to erase this little extra bit that I have. Now to finish this off, all I'm going to do is go to Lydia, line her up with the top corner furthest away from Lydia, closest to Carl. And I'm going to create a little bit of a line that goes in there. And then we have this line that was already extended out over here. We're going to go ahead and extend that out just a little bit further to line it up a little bit better with this line up here. We're going to create another straight line connecting those 2 lines just like before, going up and then erasing any excessive lines. And then almost to the end here, we're going back over to Carl and going from the top corner that we just made of that line, we're going to connect it all the way to the far side of this doorway, and then going from the bottom corner of that line we just put in, we're going to go to the opposite side of the doorway there. All right, and by this point, you should have a building that has 2 windows, a small little porch, and a doorway for your door. And if you are finished with everything else, then you can go ahead and continue adding details. So we have a space here. You can add some more steps. You can add a window. You can continue practicing. If not, that is all you need to know for adding basic details, and you are all set to go for continuing on with the project.